What do we know about the Kraken variation so far? And you think, is it more contagious or lethal than other variations?
So right now, with this new subvariant of the Kraken, the XBB 1.5, under the family still of Omicron, we know two things certain. One, it is more contagious. The genetic changes we've seen holds the potential for it being more contagious. But over the last 6 weeks here, especially in the US, it's become the dominant subvariant. So because of that percentage, it means, yes, it has its contagiousness from its genetic, the potential is held out. It also means that it begins to evade the immune system. So for some people who've had COVID, say in the fall, they're getting it again because of the ability in its mutations to reinfect. So you're going to see a lot of cases because of its contagiousness, but also because it's going to reinfect. If it's more lethal, we need more time to see if that's going to play out. The genetic changes don't seem to hold any potential for lethality, for an increase in mortality. So I say this because what I do expect with what we're seeing is more cases of COVID, maybe some hospitalizations increase, but not in our intensive care units. I don't think this is going to be more lethal.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the China story, are the experts in the US worried about China, and what are the implications of the issue?
We've been worried for several years. I mean, I would say before the pandemic, we had such a great collegiality with a lot of Chinese physicians and professors, and a lot of that got fragmented during the pandemic. Our biggest concern with what we're seeing there has to do with what they were doing a few years back. This zero lockdown was not sustainable, right? They did zero lockdown without ever introducing vaccines to their population or getting more of an intervention ready to go as they transition out. I mean, if you look at the rest of the world, we all transitioned out of lockdown so we can live again, right? They went from zero lockdown to now everyone's getting COVID. And our biggest fear with that means that this virus is going to find a lot of individuals without prior antibodies from either the vaccine or infections or both. And it means it's going to kind of go through new mutations, maybe new evolutions.
What kind of lessons did we learn from fighting this pandemic over the last 3 years?
This is important because as humans, right, we want a sense of normalcy and of control. And what we've learned a couple of things is how being uncertain makes us uncomfortable. Right? You ask great questions. Everyone does. Doctor, will this new genetic change be more lethal? And I'm telling you what I'm thinking in the real time. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plans out. However, in the last 2+ years, we have all the right resources to make COVID not lethal. We have good vaccines. We have good medications. We have a lot of good strategies. So one thing that we've learned is how to be more comfortable with this uncertainty. However, to prepare always for the worst. The other big lesson, and this is one that we should have been doing before the pandemic. We really need to do better as a society to make sure that the air we breathe is as safe as it can be. So meaning a lot of changes we've seen here in the US is buildings improving their ventilation system. And 3, to be comfortable with public health measures such as face masks whenever it's requested. That way we can live our lives, right? We don't have to ever go through severe lockdowns again if we do what we just mentioned, those 3 things.
And so you sense that in 2023, humanity is much more ready to face new challenges, new viruses that might come up?
I think we're in a better position than we were in 2020. I do think that. And we need to recognize, what we just saw with COVID, right? We saw that with MERS, the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome virus, another coronavirus. We saw this with SARS-CoV. Mother Nature is going to keep doing this. So we can't ignore Mother Nature. I always tell people if you're drowning in water, not believing in the water is not going to save you, right? Ignorance is not going to pull us out. So I do think we're better prepared because many of us have realized we need to do something. We need to do something. So if we want to live our lives comfortably, understanding certain public health measures, from who to listen to for information, from improving the ventilation systems and the overall public safety of buildings and so forth, to recognizing what weapons can I have to keep myself safe, such as face masks. So I do think we're in a better position. Yes, there'll still be some tensions and friction, but at the end of the day, it's to keep people healthy and safe.
Do you sense that by 2024, we would say goodbye to COVID? I mean, do you sense that the pandemic is going to enter an endemic stage?
My predictions when in 2020 was 2024 or 2025. I said 4 or 5 years of the pandemic. So I'm hoping we're getting there. The challenge is these new mutations that we saw in the Kraken just means we're going to keep getting infected, because the pandemic doesn't mean our hospitals are overwhelmed. We have tools to prevent severe COVID. We're not going to see that again. I don't suspect that with the current data we're seeing. We're probably going to still see a lot more cases. So I'm hoping in 2024, the mutations have settled out where it's becoming less contagious and more endemic. It's really Mother Nature who's going to drive this, not so much us per se. But I do believe that we're going to start seeing that. Why? Because especially with the 2023 may be a tough year because of so many unvaccinated people from China and other countries catching the infection, driving it. But at some point in 2024, it should settle out. So my prediction, either late 2024 or 2025, we'll start seeing it more as an endemic. But again, that's still off ways. With that said, even if we still call it pandemic, we have to recognize we have really done well to stop severe COVID. In the intensive care units, we're not seeing as many patients as we used to see, right? This is a huge win where we are learning how to defeat a life-threatening virus and make it weaker. So that's a win, even if until the pandemic goes away, but we still should recognize we have won certain battles against this pandemic war.